Hey friends, Colin here. I just have to add one quick thing before the interview gets underway. I got to apologize for some weird technical difficulties that I could not figure out. My audio does not sound good, but luckily, my amazing guest sounds great, and I think we can all still enjoy the interview. If you want to hear the full unedited version where we talk about DM tips, all sorts of interesting stuff, playing games with kids and how important that is, head on over to patreon.com/The Roll Report. Support us for just $10 a month and you will get the full unedited interviews of everyone who comes on Classin' Up the Joint. Enjoy the show.
Hello, listeners of the future, and welcome to The Roll Report. This is another episode of Classin' Up the Joint. This is the part of the show where we interview really amazing humans about their favorite character class and subclass. So, really amazing human, my wonderful guest, I am so excited to speak with you. Will you please introduce yourself?
Hi, folks. My name is Lizzy Marsden. I am a cosplayer, nerd, everything in between. I've even been a professional Hufflepuff, all of those kinds of things. And if you want to find some of my chaotic cosplays, I'm Captain Martian with an S, not a T, on Instagram. And I'm mostly known as Harley Quinn, as I have over 30 Harley Quinns.
I feel like I need to ask one more side question, which is, how many Harleys are there canonically, and how many of them have you cosplayed?
So I don't exclusively do
Sure.
what is canonic. So I just got a nun costume that I'm making nun Harley Quinn. But canonically there's like 100 or so. Like Harley famously says she doesn't understand Superman because of the fact that he wears the same outfit every day. And in Batman and Harley Quinn, my favorite movie, you can see her closet, and her closet is all, she just can go through and pick what version of Harley she does. And I'm there. Like,
yes.
if I was able to have a full closet that was exclusively my Harley gear, I could fill it out. I don't have steampunk Harley yet, though, which is the only one.
That sounds like there's still time.
I'm close. I need more gears and clock parts.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I happen to have a crap ton of watch parts that I am slowly disassembling many pocket watches. So they're very small. I don't know if it's the right size, but like.
You heard it here first. Steampunk Harley Quinn coming in hot.
Yeah. I love it. Amazing. I feel like I'd also like to ask, like, for a moment before we get into class, like, what I don't want to say what is your relationship to D&D, but like what is a thing that you enjoy most about it, or sort of the brief introduction to your.
Well, as a cosplayer, it's cosplaying is big shtick energy, and you're like running around a convention role playing. And the nice thing about Dungeons and Dragons is everybody at the table knows what your character is and has agreed to shtick back at you. So, and then I love the added element of the dice that makes it so that it's either like, I'm the most confident person in the entire world, this is going to be great, nat one. And you're like, well, that just smacked me upside the face. Like, or it's like,
took one big step in the felt.
Natural 20, and it's like God smiled down on you. And so the element of shticking and role playing and getting deep within a character with other people that are in that same energy is already one of my favorite things. And then to add on it the chaotic element of dice rolls that just impacts your, like, it's actually having a god at the table with you. Like, and it feels like that God is doing a shtick with you. And so, like, it's divine shticking. I
resonate with that very much. I think I say a fair number of times, probably at least once a session, the dice decide what story we're telling. You can make the most amazing schemes and plots to rescue your friend or like defeat the villain, and then as soon as you start rolling dice, all the plans go out the window.
Oh, I've made so many backstories of characters that were like, I'm gritty and cool and stuff, and the dice were like, no, you're not. Like,
yeah.
Like every time I try to do something cool, I get a terrible roll. Every time I don't get out, and I'm like, I just want my friends to be okay. It's like natural 20. I'm like,
yeah.
Well, it's not my job to decide which way this character goes.
No, I mean the dice can do a really good job. I think it's funny that there does seem to be a tendency towards leaning characters and leaning stories as a larger way in different directions through that. The character you thought was going to be the like incredibly cheerful, happy person suddenly like keeps rolling garbage and is always like angsty and depressed and fucking everything up. And like the one who's supposed to be a fuck up is always on top.
Well, that's the thing is my first character, I was trying to be a fuck up. And then I ended up being the leader of the entire group.
Yes.
And I was like, that. And everyone was like, but this is not what you're written for. And I'm like, I didn't decide this.
I just followed the dice.
Like character. And then you guys all roll garbage. So for some reason, I'm in charge now.
I'm playing a campaign where I think everyone that is currently playing, we've had like one player kind of in and out. We are all 0 or negative charisma modifiers, and we keep having to talk to people. It's bad.
Oh, man.
Bad. All right. Well, to the nitty gritty, to the first question, yeah. Lizzy, what is your favorite character class or classes?
Rogue and Bard is probably who I love playing the most. I love a magic user and stuff. Like, I think they're really fun, but there's just something about like, okay, I'm going to sneak up on him. Like it could go so badly. Yeah. I think it like sneak attack could go so badly, and it has so many times that it, like for my clown persona, it is either like I'm gonna like get 6d6 while I like stab this guy in the back, and if you're an assassin class, like that's even at a 19, like, or I'm gonna roll real bad. I'm gonna step on this rock, and then my very squishy character is in a lot of danger.
I'm like, right there in the thick of things where I should not be.
Yeah, and he like being I made him a very charismatic rogue and stuff like that. And I personally like making characters that are like the opposite of min-maxed. Like they're very human. And so like an extremely charismatic rogue who was trained as a fighter, who everybody thinks is a bard, like kind of thing. And so I build my characters to be profoundly flawed to allow them to like have room to breathe. So I like the danger of a rogue. Like they're like the emo kid that's like did karate and is like a black belt at like 3rd grade or whatever. And I love taking that and making them be like kind of a himbo. Like,
yeah.
Like
that's so fun.
Chaotic, dumb, pansexual, like all the bard class things, even rogue, to me is the funny thing. So like I love a bard for the character idea of it, because I am a bard.
Yeah.
And then putting that in a rogue. And then everyone's like, why are you the face of the party? You're supposed to move in shadows. And it's like, I'm sorry, I'm very handsome.
Well, and I would put it that I don't think there's a supposed. One of the things we've talked about, I think you and I talked about this a little bit like before, and I talked about with my last guest, is that rogue, because of the subclass and because of how you can play it, lends itself to a wide variety of backgrounds. There is sort of I would say the two stereotypes I think of most are, the assassin in the shadows or the thief in the shadows. You are absolutely not the face of the party. You always hide in the background and hover and like do all the skullduggery, so to speak. And there is like the charlatan, which is I would argue, like, I think that's why there's a lot of crossover in proficiencies and skills between Bard and Rogue. But like the Rogue who is like, yes, I am a distinguished businessman, a fellow tradesperson, if you will, from far away. Don't mind this other hand that's reaching into your pocket to take all of your money. Let's talk about business.
Yep.
And like, yeah.
And I think I was in Oliver the play as a kid, and I think that learning to be a pickpocket there like was the start of my rogue journey. And
did they teach you some like pickpocketing and sleight of hand skills for this show?
No, but I was in charge of the Fagin kids, and so once they, as a reward for like getting their dance moves down and being good, I would let us practice pickpocketing.
Yeah.
Like if they were really good, I'd try to get like a locksmith kit and see if we could learn how to pick locks. And I haven't learned how to pick locks yet, but I still want to. Like I want to learn how to do everything my D&D character does. Like
that is I would love that.
Right?
That's a good goal to have.
As a rogue, I could potentially. Like,
yeah.
I can't turn into a bear in real life.
I mean, not yet.
Yeah.
We can hope.
That just happened there. I was like, well,
We can hope. Yeah. Okay, so the super fast rundown of Rogue, because we've done this one before.
Oh, yeah.
And I figured out the thing that I missed last time, which is most of the classes have 5 ability of score improvements. Rogues get an extra one. Rogues get a 6th, and it's fighters that have 7 because I don't know, they need them. Of course, our most amazing thing, cunning action, getting to hide, disengage, or dash as a bonus action, sneak attacks, evasion, and uncanny dodge to mitigate damage. And then if you take them all the way up into the teens and 20s of your level, reliable talent, blind sense, proficiency in wisdom saves from Slippery Mind, elusive, stroke of luck, which was it that one? Yeah, that one is like once per short or long rest. If you fail an ability check, you can just decide to roll a 20. Or if you miss a target within range, you can just decide to hit.
Yeah. And steady aim gives you the same, right. Like gives you sneak attack as if you're hiding. So you don't have like there's so many great things. And if you're like chaotic enough with how you do your proficiencies, like I had at like level 7 plus 9 to persuasion. Because I bulked out my charisma and then I made that my expertise. And so that's why I became the face of the party, because anytime someone came to talk to us, I'd be like, hey, let's have a chat. And it'd be like, okay, I rolled 10, so 19.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that fucking
sorry, like rogues and bards, I love for that like really early on the expertise can like get you, I would say, into or out of a very sticky situation.
Oh yeah.
I love these situations where you essentially get into the fuck around and find out that like the DM has either said like, all right, you're fucking around enough and I'm going to throw this at you, or, oh balls, here's a dragon and you really should run away, but you're not. What do I do? And then your players come up with something insane. And the only response is roll for it. Like that's the only thing you can really say, I think.
Yeah, and for me, that's why I like, no hate to min-maxers. I think everybody can play the game the way that they want to play it. But for my way of playing it, that's why I create these extremely flawed characters. Because if I had min-maxed Klaus to be the best rogue, that moment with that dragon, we would have been TPK'd. And so the way that I play, it allows me to have more creative solutions in like weird up against the wall moments for me than I think I necessarily would. Cause like everybody else in my party at that moment had min-maxed for the most part. And they were trying to figure out the logical solution here. And because I was chaos, I came up with the chaos solution.
Yeah.
And that's why you do need lawful and chaotic on every party. And like the diversity of a party is also what like makes it extremely fun.
Yeah. There and I think the diversity of both the classes and how people approach them. Because you can always do the oops all whatever party at either purposely or accidentally, but as long as people play them differently, I think you still get a good spread of relationships, I guess I want to say, and characters to engage with. Before we talk about bards, I want to ask you, I guess, about your method of character creation. Then is in not min-max terms, and I think one thing that just occurred to me would be like, okay, you're creating a rogue and you're doing standard array rather than rolled. So it's, what is that? 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, 15, whatever. I'm putting you on the spot, but in this moment, how might you approach a standard array and a rogue character rather than, I would say the instinct or what Player's Handbook might recommend is like drop that 15 into your dexterity and drop the next highest into either like intelligence or wisdom and then go from there.
So I don't think that hard about it. And that's it's kind of where, so the way that I developed Klaus was, it worked so well that I kind of have stuck with it, which is I go by instinct when I'm building a character. So I'm going to describe Klaus and Kopesh because these are two examples. Klaus is a arcane trickster rogue with a bardic feat. And how it first started is I do Klaus Hargreaves as a drag persona. And I was making a music video as Klaus Hargreaves. And I thought it'd be funny to put him in Dungeons and Dragons. So that was my first thought here's this character that I like playing, cosplay. And then I was on a date with a DM and he let me look at all the character marker guys to figure out what I was going to print. And I saw this cat prince guy who was like, ooh, I'm fancy. And I was like, okay, so he's going to be a cat. And I like that. And I think that's funny. And I like that he's fancy. So I based it on that picture and that picture. And then we get into the building of it. And I go, okay, well, based on these things that I know about this character idea, well, I like the idea of a rogue. I didn't know much about rogues and or any classes. And I was just like having them described and I was like, oh, I want to stab people. I just thought that'd be funny. And I figured Klaus Hargreaves is always picking locks and things like that. So I was like, oh, well, that works for him. And then I did all of my stats based on his personality and didn't care at all about anything to do with how that was going to impact his ability to be played. So I was like, well, everybody loves Klaus. So high charisma. He's weirdly intelligent and stuff. And then when I said I wanted to do an arcane trickster, that was the only stat that I was like,
right,
okay, fine, I'll give that a little bit more so that my spells will work. But beyond that everything else was like what fits the personality of this character trying to portray. And how that ended up being is that Con became my dump stat for
oh wow, bold move.
Klaus Hargreaves is a drug addict who's constantly that then became a big part of my character story that I later built in that Klaus Hargreaves is always trying to die basically. So I made it that I'm from a noble cat nation and I want to go to Cat Valhalla. So I need to die in battle in order to go to Cat Valhalla. And so I had iconic lines like "Don't heal me till I'm dead" and stuff. It was very fun. But eventually, it got to the point where I was dying so frequently that's why I picked up the bardic feat so I could cure wounds myself. But that added to Klaus and stuff.
Yeah.
Me. So and then the fact that I had already bulked out charisma without intending to, that meant that any bardic spells that I got then used my charisma modifier. So then I actually had a really good spell. I was Like, I think my spell DC was like 12 or something on my wizard spells. But when it got to Bard, it was like 14 or 15. So it was like, oh, okay, well, if I bulk out on the Bardic element, and that allowed it to play out. So for me, it's more about figuring out the story of the character and what makes sense for the story. So Kopesh was my first real build after Klaus, and he is a cleric of the Forge satyr. And the only way you can be a cleric of the Forge, like, and I'm not the only way, but like one of the big ways is that you studied with dwarves and you were a chosen friend of the dwarves. And so it was just in D&D Beyond going through and being like, okay, what do I want here? Like as I was prompted with the class feature or whatever, what do I want? And I was like, oh, well, if I was like beloved of mountain dwarves, okay, so that means that I grew up around mountain dwarves. What does that mean? Like all this stuff. And so I ended, and satyrs are naturally charismatic, so I didn't bother like on that. I was like, okay, let's make him really wise. And as I'm going through the stats, intelligence becomes the dump stat for Kopesh. So then I put into his story that he's so dumb, he didn't realize that he was sold to the dwarves. He's just so wholesome and sweet.
The tragic backstory he doesn't even know is tragic.
Yeah, he doesn't realize it's tragic. So his name is Kopesh because he was sold for a Kopesh sword. And he's one of like 20 satyr kids, because satyrs, and also then like looking up class like information. Like I have a Furbolg druid of the stars who's also a pirate, but Furbolgs don't understand money. And so that was like a fun thing to add in. Or this pirate who doesn't understand gold or whatever. And how could I make that work? And like, for the most part, as I'm building a character, I do research into things like I really wanted to be a satyr. Like I don't like playing what it's become like what creature I want to play first, and also what class is missing from a party. I've started reaching like like I'll play whatever class is missing because otherwise I just want to play a rogue who's pretending to be a bard. Like
and if it sounds like, if I like summarize a little bit, that especially when it comes to ability scores, the character comes first. Who is for you? Who is this character? What are they like? How do they interact with the world and with people that are their friends versus their enemies? And the spread of stats and the points go from there. Yeah.
No, it is never to make me more powerful. It is always to make me more funny.
I fucking love that. I love that so much.
We're role playing.
Yeah. It's play. It is play.
Hey listeners, Colin here, just cutting in for a quick moment to say thanks for listening. We hope you're really enjoying the show. We are having so much fun making it and getting to play together, and hopefully you're having fun listening. We'd really love it if you would leave us a 5-star rating on whatever platform you're listening to us on. Maybe even go one more minute further and leave us a review. We love reading them. It makes us feel great, and we will give you a shout out on the show as soon as you do that. If you really love us, and we hope you do, head on over to patreon.com/therollreport. And maybe you can give us whatever you can spare a month. For as little as $2 a month, you'll support this show and everyone involved in making it. A little bit more, and you won't have to listen to me or anyone else asking you for money or telling you about our social media handles. That's right, on Instagram and TikTok at The Roll Report Cast, you can find exclusive new art, all sorts of cool stuff, little edited videos of the interviews that you might not have heard even, and so much more. Thank you all so much for listening. We love doing this, and we hope you are having fun with us. Back to the show.
Well, and that seems like a good segue to talk about Bard specifically for a moment. And again, the super fast thing, standard 5 ability scores, D8s of hit dice, spell casting, charisma based, and a really lovely spell list plus magical secrets. Bardic Inspiration and Jack of all trades. All of these are really amazing, wonderful things. Expertise. You get 4 bits of expertise by the end, magical secrets. And then I'm going to complain about this again. The second time I'm complaining about this, the 20th level, the capstone feature, When you roll initiative and have no uses of bardic inspiration left, you get 1.
I haven't actually. Well, you get what? What do you get?
That you get 1 inspiration back. That is your 20th level feature.
And I said, you get what? And I was like, is this a quiz?
Oh, no, sorry. 1. My mispronunciation. No, yeah, there's a 14th and an 18th level magical secrets. There's some other subclass Bard College features in there. And then at 20th level, if you're getting into initiative situation, either combat or otherwise, and you have no bardic inspiration left, you regain 1. I think that just seems so sad compared to like the rogue's ability to like turn a miss into a hit or a failed ability check into a nat 20. And the 20th level, all paladin features are all fucking amazing. Anyway.
Well, so this is why I think Bard as a front for other classes is my favorite thing.
I love that.
Yeah, like I love Bard as a character front or like an element to a character. But like one bardic class that I've really gotten into, and I'm debating between doing an artificer or a bard for this one class, which is the culinary class of bard. Have you heard of this?
No, but I love this idea. I feel like there's a lot of good stuff to play with in there.
It's a super OP class of bard because you can do a divine inspiration meal.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the cleric chalice spell,
the hero's feast. Yeah.
But like that's like what they can do at a fairly low level. I forget where it's at.
Uh-huh.
And the idea for this came from I wanted to make an artificer that threw exploding cupcakes.
I love that.
It's a turtle, and they've got an easy bake oven in their shell. I'm very proud.
That's amazing.
And a DM that I pitched this to went, have you looked into the chef class of Bard? It's a new one. And like, it feels, it's less big and flashy, but it has like, I think it's like closer to cleric in the Bard line of things. Cause it's got more healing and more power in that way, but it doesn't have as many like instant things. Cause you're making a meal.
Right.
So
is that I'm curious to know where that comes from. That sounds homebrew, or is it from a source book?
I don't know if it's from a source book.
Okay. I don't know, but I love that.
People tell me when I come up, because I mostly come up with weird ideas.
And then someone else is like, here's mechanically how this might work.
You're going to put it. And I go, oh, okay. Like I was trying to do Aang, the Last Airbender. And I was like, okay, so I need a monk of the 4 elements and stuff like that. And then I was like, what if I made them a bunny, actually? And then that's pretty much, it starts with a character that exists, and then I just ruin it.
I would love that.
Like bards are so great as a front because they're not perceived as that threatening. When you show up to like fortress and you're covered in swords and like all black leather and shit, people are like, I'm not gonna let this fighter rogue into my fortress. But if you show up and you're like, I got a loot and like fancy clothes, like I'm just gonna entertain you, they're like, seems fine.
Seems okay. But
you could take a bard, and it's like, ooh, you could take me, daddy. But like, then just kidding, stab, or just kidding, explosion. Like, like I haven't played a direct bard, but I love the culture of bards. Yeah. Like all my characters wish they were bards, but they got busy doing other things.
Do they? It sounded like Klaus at least like has like the bard initiate feat or other thing. Did you do things mechanically for characters, or is it the flavor of them playing a lyre and wanting to be a bard in a different life sort of thing?
So it was both. I needed cure wounds, and we had a cleric in our party, and I was like, maybe I could be, because our cleric was not great at what he was doing. It was my fault because I got my arcane trickster got magic from doing drugs, and our cleric lost his sister, and he was going through an existential crisis. So I gave him mushrooms, and then after that, he became a really bad cleric.
I love everything about that story.
We went on a mushroom trip. He like talked to God, and then after that, he was like, "I love drugs," and we were like, "Well, now we don't have a cleric." So I kept almost dying, and I had reached the point where my plan wasn't that Klaus was going to die early. I was like actually having fun playing him. So
yeah. Okay. So between Bard and Rogue, are they equal? Can we
Rogue.
declare one a favorite? Rogue,
Arcane Trickster is like specifically Arcane Trickster.
I was going to say the next thing I'm going to ask you is about subclass, but if it's just like right to Arcane Trickster, that's an easy segue. I would say the cleanest and neatest it's been.
I described an Arcane Trickster rogue to a person, and they were like, "That's an Arcane Trickster," and I was like, "Great."
Yeah.
I wanted it before I knew what it was.
So. All right, so Rogue is a favorite, and Arcane Trickster, wizard-based spell casting, starting at 3rd level, so intelligence. I appreciate actually. I the first time I played one of these, I was like kind of annoyed about it, and then I do actually appreciate that you are mostly, if you play by raw, you are mostly restricted to enchantment and illusion spells, except for 8th, 14th, and 20th level. But it to me, that like really leans into the rogues, like the roguishness, if you will. Special mage hand, magical ambush, which I fucking love. It's so good. If you are hidden, creatures have disadvantage on saving throws against your spells. Versatile trickster, distracting with your mage hand, and spell thief. Right. Think about spell thief and then think about that fucking bullshit superior inspiration that bards get. At 17th level, arcane tricksters can magically steal the knowledge of how to cast a spell. At 20th level, a bard gets a die of bardic inspiration back. Whoopee. Anyway.
Well, so and here was how I homebrewed my character with my DM was I had to do drugs to swap out any spells. Like if I wanted to swap out a spell, I had to do drugs and roll well. Like there was always a chance of like, if I really fucked up, I could lose a spell slot or something like that. Like we had costs and stuff, but that meant that when I realized that I had a spare spell slot, like that I was like, oh my God, I want to learn invisibility. Like I can't just give it to you. And I was like, great, like, let's figure this out. Let's figure out, I'll, when we get a second in all of our running around in campaign, I'm going to do drugs. And so it also meant that I then, like, whenever we got to a city, I was like, I need to get drugs.
Yeah.
So that I can, even like explore because arcane tricksters, for folks that don't know, cannot swap out their spell slots. They don't have it's wizard spells, but it is not. You don't get
you don't have a book necessarily. You're supposed
you pick up from being a rogue that is hyper observant, and you can never swap out cantrips. Like my DM allowed me to have a little bit more wiggle room, particularly because I was like, I chose certain spells when I was like first learning how to do the character and stuff. So the way that and I really appreciate a DM who's like, I'll let you do this, but there's a cost. Like, I'm not just going to give it to you for no good reason. If you're ever like questioning it, like, oh, should I DM? Will it be fun and stuff? DM for kids. Like they're the best players. Honestly, they don't care. They haven't read the books. They don't care about the rules. They just want to have fun. All you have to do is go, yeah, you can do that. Roll for it. And they're like, grr! Like I've had dice thrown to bounce off of a table.
Oh yeah. I mean, I will counter that slightly by saying I did DM a little bit for kids last year, and they were preteens, like 10 or 11 to 13, maybe. 3 of them have like memorized the entire player's handbook, and
12-year-old has now too.
Those kids, I find there's a fun challenge because they're going to ask you to get away with all kinds of stuff that might be explicitly against rules as written. And it's still so good. I want to let them do it.
I let them do whatever the heck they want.
Yeah.
I love it. I'm obsessed with it. It's because I'm having the best time ever. And
Mhm.
and last time what I actually gave them all prizes, the thing that they found.
Oh, I love that.
They found a bunch of dragon eggs and then they hatched and I gave them all little fairy dragons to
That
commemorate
is
the game.
too
And
charming.
it was real cute. And another really important thing that
Mm.
I think parents should run D&D games for their kids all the time, because my nephew Alec was at the stage where he wasn't good at sharing and wasn't
Mhm.
good at, letting other people have input in what playtime was. So rolling initiative became this amazing teaching tool for.
Yeah.
He's a super sweet kid. He's just very excitable. I'm the same way. And so the fact that he had to wait his turn and roll initiative made it that then he went from being like, I want to go, and we go, it's not your turn. It's not your turn in the initiative, to him then figuring out that he could still participate by cheering on his teammates.
Yeah.
Theirs.
Yeah.
And the storytelling that came out of it was so fun. Watching these kids go, okay, so Scorcher sees that Joe is in trouble, and I'm going to move 10 feet towards him and then cast my firebolt. And I was just like,
yeah. I think it not only an initiative is a really good way to have the order of it, right? Of kids or a human is impatient and no, here's the list. We're going down the list and we go back to the top. But the whole thing the whole game, right? D&D or other RPGs, any sort of thing where you're collaboratively storytelling, you got to play nice. You have to play with people, and otherwise it all falls apart really quick. If the one character is like, I'm going that way, and you're like, well, the entire rest of the party is going here to do this other thing, not go reclaim your family's lost honor when you're level 3, and that's actually what I have planned for level 12 or whatever it might be.
Our druid barbarian ended up doing that so much that he just left the game. He would be like, I'm going to go do this because I don't want to go do drugs with you in the city. And we were like, bye, we're doing drugs in the city. What we do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think that we as society have too many board games that are versus each other.
Mm-hmm.
A thing that all of these collaborative storytelling games are great about, or games like Plague Inc., are that they are about us versus the world instead of us versus each other. And from my perspective, the actually lived human experience is us versus the world, not us versus each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the more people learn that young, the better.
I was telling my parents a little bit about the podcast, and my mom asked me the question, how do you win D&D? And I immediately was like, well, you don't. And then as I thought about it for a second, I was like, no, you win if everyone's having a good time and telling the story together. Mm-hmm. That I think is the win condition. There's the arc of the whole narrative you might be telling of level whatever to level 20, and breaking up bar fights in your hometown to saving the world from the existential threat of the week. But winning is everybody coming together to tell a story and having a good time.
Yeah, and I think jumping off that point, philosophically, we have learned so much that winning means the end of something. Mm-hmm. And I think that that can carry over into the rest of our lives. Winning is when I finally get the job that I wanted, when I finally get married, I finally get this, and then that is the end of this struggle. And so many stories don't go beyond that win, whereas D&D teaches us that you can be winning throughout the campaign, throughout just one session, whether that's because you won an encounter, because you guys had a very funny thing, because you're just getting to know your character more. There's so many micro wins and grander wins, and that makes it so much more. It creates a healthy balance with your perspective on life as well, that life is also full of these micro wins and these grander wins. And just because you get the girl doesn't mean that the story's over, and doesn't mean that you've won. It's just one win in the story moving forward.
Yeah.
And like that is only enhanced by having a really dope party around you. And so like I love D&D almost as like a philosophy on life. Is like like, have you heard of people using, instead of the spoons theory for like emotional energy,
capacity and
using spell slots?
Oh, no, but I like that.
And
I like that a lot because you also can level them. You're like, well, today I've got like an 8th level slot. I got a lot here. It's not like I've got a very big soup spoon.
Yeah, and also you can use a higher level spell slot for a lower level thing if you need to. So say, like you need to take a shower and all you have left is like a level 3 and that's a level 2. You can sacrifice doing the dishes in order to take a shower because you need to do the level 2. And so like I find that the more that I incorporate D&D language into my everyday life and all that stuff, the healthier of a relationship I have with the adventure I'm actually living. And so I personally think that D&D, if everybody played D&D, the world would be a healthier place.
I cannot think of a better note to end on than that. The world should play more D&D. I love that. So, and to go back, we have our rogue arcane trickster as class sub. Rogue is popping up a lot, and I love that. It's so good. Lizzy, thank you so much for taking the time and joining me. I think one more time, where can people find you in the world electronically?
Mostly on Instagram at Captain Martian. That's Captain, spelled like Captain, and Martian, Marsian. And yeah, you'll see all my cosplays and chaos and lots of weird D&D jokes and stuff like that.
Love it. Do you have any cool things coming up to plug, to promote?
I don't. My boy band Boys to Them is working on a new project right now, but we don't know when we will be able to put it out. But yeah, look for Boys to Them stuff. Oh, and if you want to buy any weird clothing, Pride clothing, Boys to Them merch, any of that, you can go to my website, marsmadeclothing.com, and buy year-round Pride gear.
Amazing. And we'll put those links in the show notes so people will have them when they listen. Thank you, listeners of the future, for joining us for another episode of Classing Up the Joint. Thank you so much, Lizzy. And I'm gonna stop recording and move on. But thank you, listeners and stuff. I don't know. We don't really have an outro yet, but goodbye.